other thing.
Well,
45 seconds.
I'm
Okay.
learning too.
Well, I've never done this before, so
Well, this would
you're
be
in
fun.
good company. Yeah.
Good. Well, the things I've done it, but I keep screwing up.
Well, thank God it's not live.
Yeah.
Well, I used to be live when I had a TV thing on Good Morning Texas and some radio stuff, and they used to go 3, 2, and I try to beat the clock.
the one.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a soft one, right? Okay. So as I was saying, I met your dad about 24 years ago. He's a cardiologist. He was an eminent cardiologist, incredibly well respected. He started the Dallas Heart Group, which was the first cardiovascular group in North Texas. And I came from Houston, from Baylor College of Medicine. So he had some dealings with them and some patients in common. So through a convoluted series of events, I met him. And I guess he had bypass surgery, and he said, well, I'll interview you, I guess. Read my PET scan. That was my interview.
Yeah.
So a PET scan is, as both of you may know, a very specific type of cardiac imaging study that very few cardiologists know how to read. But they happen to have a machine in his office, which is very hard to do. Very few people have those. Most major hospitals have one perhaps for oncology, but not for cardiology. So the more common use would be in the oncology world. Anyways, so we had a great conversation, and I ended up doing my own thing, but we remained friends, and he would from time to time invite me and call me, hey, we're doing dinner, or there's this presentation, I want you to come. Have you thought about joining us? You speak Spanish. We need someone that speaks Spanish. This and that.
Yeah.
And he was funny because I got to know him as Ron, not just, not Dr. Underwood. We walked through that, even though there was an age difference. He was very good, funny, and he confided in me with his health issues. And I was at that time doing interventions and so on. But over time, I switched to a preventive cardiovascular type practice. So,
Which is a perfect segue into this segment. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome again to the Leverage Podcast.
Yes.
I'm your host, Davio Venturas. Once again, we have with us Dr. Federico Macy, preeminent cardiologist, also known as Dr. Suave. And we're very excited. We're very excited for our guest today, Evan Hernandez, I've been told is the proper way to pronounce it.
no, it's not. Hernandez.
Who is going, I think you guys are going to find her story absolutely compelling, and it's going to be a great entree into a topic that we've been wanting to talk about for quite a while,
Yes.
gut health and nutrition.
Yes.
So, hi, Evan. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to the
thanks
Leverage
for having
Podcast.
me.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So as I said earlier, your dad was a eminent cardiologist here in the community, incredibly well respected, and someone I became friends. So this joins the circle. This brings us together. I had no idea he was your dad.
Yeah.
Pretty
yeah,
impressive.
Yeah. Small
Yeah.
world.
I was going to recruit their entire group to do a new heart hospital, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I had the deal right there in 2009, ready to go. We were going to have our own place and own it.
Yeah. He ended up doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The heart
Yeah,
hospital.
The heart hospital.
Yeah. I meant one that wasn't by Baylor. I meant ours.
Yours. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. The
But
medical
anyways.
community has changed quite a bit.
It has. So tell us, how did you guys meet? How did you end up here today?
Davio and I met last weekend.
No, that's not true.
We actually met when we were about 6 years old.
6 years old.
Yes.
Wow.
We met each other last weekend at a fundraiser for EarthX and ended up sitting next to each other and chatting. And I went home to tell my mom, who I met and chatted with in about the evening, and said Davio, and she said Venturas. And I was like, I don't know. Let me look. And so small world, she and my dad were good friends with Davio's parents. And apparently
They were
we
at my
all-
wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
But we
apparently
hadn't
we all
seen each
had
other in-
Mexican food when we were 6 years old and all of those kinds of things. And our parents lost touch over the years, but still remained very
So they were
respectful of each
hippies too
other.
with your parents
Probably.
for a time?
My mom would say they weren't hippies; they were yippies. It was pre-hippie.
Yeah.
So the reason why I was excited to have you on the podcast is you have a story that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people of discovering gut health and nutrition.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey from autoimmune disease. It got serious at one point.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
take it away.
Autoimmune disorders and then borderline disease with Sjogren's. But I've had a long journey with my health. And I think, hindsight, where it began was as an infant. At the ripe old age of 5 months old, I had to have surgery and have my ureters reimplanted. And so they started me on a series of antibiotics at 3 months old until I was about 8 months old. Right. And I think, having that surgery, going through those rounds of antibiotics really set me on a path to poor gut health for the rest of my life.
Correct.
And it was something that wasn't discussed or even really known about. And there's still so much research going on right now as we speak. It's become a very hot topic in functional medicine and in the preventative community, learning more about gut health and how it affects every aspect of our lives, from mood, digestion, energy, all the things. So, that started it. And as I grew up, I had kind of chronic UTIs from having those issues with my ureters. And so every year, at least once a year, I would have to do a round of antibiotics. And I never really rebounded from that and didn't know why, as a teenager, I was suffering from digestive problems and chronic issues in that department that at times could be debilitating, really created a lot of chronic fatigue, started suffering from depression as a teenager, anxiety, different issues. And my diet on top of that was jam-packed with processed foods, powdered sugar donuts, Cheez-Its, which I still love, by the way, but didn't do myself any favors to rebuild my gut health after going through all of that.
So this morning we were going for a walk and I brought up the issue about antibiotic use in infants and how negative it is, how deleterious it is to the normal development of the biodome. So the biodome, for those of us joining us today, is the healthy guts, the trillions of healthy gut bacteria that we have in our gastrointestinal system.
Doesn't the bacteria in our body almost outweigh the rest of us?
Outnumber.
Outnumber, yeah.
Yes, by far, like 100,000, maybe even more than that, to one. Yes, you're right. So you had, because of the antibiotics that were given to you post reimplantation of your ureters, dysbiosis. That's the official sort of medical term. And it's something that's, becoming more and more recognized, as you correctly mentioned, with functional medicine.
Right.
And among gastroenterologists and those practicing, preventive cardiovascular disease like myself. So most of my patients have experienced dysbiosis for a long time because they do have similar, experience with prediabetes, diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol issues, obesity, leaky gut syndrome, and behavioral issues.
Right.
Right? Poor concentration, anxiety, depression,
Yes.
etc. And you were being given antibiotics on a regular basis
Yes.
on top of the processed food diet, or rich in that, which was preventing your good bacteria, the lactobacillus, the enterococci, good ones, from growing.
Right.
And you had the bad ones proliferating. So dysbiosis.
Right. And, for years, I'm 48 now. And so it wasn't until I was 46 that I really started finding solutions that were helping me. And, so for years, I'm like, what's wrong with me?
Yes.
And going to, different doctors, endocrinologists, anyone that I could potentially get some help from, and having them say, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you.
Did anyone mention it's
No.
in your gut?
No,
Wow.
not
Impressive.
one time.
So you were diagnosed with Sjogren's at what age?
I was borderline Sjogren's.
Okay.
At 44.
And what symptoms were you having that prompted someone, say a rheumatologist, to do the antibody screenings? You know, the SSA, SSB,
That
ANA?
actually happened when I was trying to conceive. I had a lot of trouble getting pregnant.
Right.
I waited till later in life to have my daughter. I had her at 41, but I had to, they tested my ANA. I had hyperstimulated natural killer cells,
Right.
which anytime I would get pregnant, it would kick it out immediately.
And is that from the gut health?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yes.
there's the wrong bacteria, unfortunately, cause an activation, a deleterious activation of the T cells, the memory T cells, the T cytotoxic, the T killer cells. So that sets up the immune system to do all kinds of horrific things to your body. One
Right.
of which is autoimmune disorders and fetal wastage.
That's what's going on with my psoriasis, right?
I believe so. I believe in your case, you definitely, because of the type of journey you've had with nutrition and letting yourself go for the last few years, experience a similar.
That was a COVID. That was
Well, whatever, those things. So finally, one of your doctors and said, okay, you've got to see a specialist that may know something about this issue, right? Autoimmune disorders and what causes them?
I did go, my reproductive specialist sent me to a rheumatologist, at which point, my ANA was around 160.
Right.
So it was relatively low.
Yeah, it was.
And over the course of the next few years, it tripled.
It tripled.
And they said I was borderline Sjogren's in my
Okay, so when they
blood work.
broke down, they did all of the different, there are about 7 different kinds of autoimmune disorders that fall under the positive ANA. So I'm sure they sent the panel to look for the other, lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and mixed connective tissue disease and
Right. And hypothyroid was
And all those
also
in-
something that I
that you had.
had.
Right.
Yes.
And that contributed to not being able to get pregnant, I'm certain.
Yeah. And so I was doing infusions to kick back my NK cells and,
Right.
try to level things off. Also doing a lot of reading about acupuncture and about artificial sweeteners.
Right.
Cutting out, the Diet Coke that I was,
Yes.
chain
Consuming.
drinking
Yeah.
on a daily basis. And I did end up, I had less than a 1% chance of getting pregnant. And I did end up getting pregnant and having my daughter at 41.
But you changed your diet or you were
I really
at
didn't
least-
change my diet. I was having the infusions and I was still taking my antidepressants, my anti-anxiety,
Right.
still putting out fires, as
Right.
it were, and treating some symptoms.
Right. So again, let me break it down to the neurochemistry a bit. So the pro-inflammatory milieu in her gut, so she has whole body inflammation, all the way to the brain, to that part, the nucleus accumbens,
Up. Take a drink.
right? Nucleus accumbens. So
He says it every
dopamine,
podcast.
her dopamine level is low all the time.
Right.
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 And that creates states of anxiety, depression, addiction, suicidal,
Chronic fatigue.
chronic fatigue, all of it.
Yeah.
Chronic pain.
Yes.
You're living in this chronic pain world because of the inflammation that's coming from the gut, affecting most organ systems. Clearly, your rheumatological system, your gynecological system,
Right.
and neurologic system,
Right.
including your mental health or well-being.
Right.
So it's sad that today, with all the food offerings that we have, food industry, most people are not aware that they are eroding this gut health gradually.
Because
Right.
to be clear, you weren't living in a food desert. You had access to all the food.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Sure. And I've had some food issues and relatively picky, as it were, most of my life for various reasons. But yeah, no, I had access, but I just didn't have the knowledge that I needed
Right.
or the direction, really.
Yes.
I knew the basics. You should eat X, Y, and Z. Okay, I can do that, but it's not helping. And I'm not enjoying myself. And that was another part of it. I wanted to find a solution that was sustainable where I could really enjoy my life and still eat what I want to eat and, be balanced and not feel so run down all the time.
Yes. And most of the time, those anti-anxiety meds and the antidepressants
Right.
keep those neurotransmitters on the wrong side. They actually can beget more depression and more anxiety and less likelihood for recovery unless you do abstinence from them for a time, but then you need to be weaned off. So it requires someone who understands and has the knowledge to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take you by the hand, and this is where we're going to be in 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks.
Right.
Because it takes at least a month for the neurotransmitters to come up to where they should be in a otherwise healthy young lady.
Right.
So what precipitated? So did this keep getting worse?
It did. Okay. And after I had my daughter, it took about 2 years for them to diagnose what was wrong with me, which was I had severely prolapsed. I had tissue failure, so I had cystocele, rectocele, and uterine prolapse. Wow. Basically, my whole body was falling out of
pelvis.
Me.
Can you
falling?
Explain that to the?
Well, there's a laxitude. She lost the muscle.
Y'all
tone.
are speaking cardiologist language, and
she was losing muscle.
Got it.
And the pelvic, and also not only but the supporting fibers, collagen fibers, right? You need to have a certain tone of muscle to keep you in your place. So it was falling down.
Everything's falling out of me.
Yeah.
But it took them 2 years to diagnose that. So I had an extraordinary amount of pain on a daily basis. Right. I was also going through perimenopause. So at, 42 years old, and everything that goes along with that. And just didn't feel good. And I did have surgery, got everything fixed up, 7 different procedures in one surgery. And
more antibiotics.
Yes.
And I did feel better. I did start to feel better. And then promptly after my surgery, I was 44, and life happens and stresses of life happen. And, so I was under an enormous amount of stress. My daughter does have special needs. She has a high functioning autism and hypotonia. And hypotonia is basically a weak core. The connective tissue is weak. And so she struggles with balance, fine and gross motor. Used to be a big problem with swallowing, choking, all of those things. So my cortisol levels were just extremely high on a daily basis, just trying to keep her alive, much less everything else that was going on with just day-to-day life and not feeling good. Wow. So at the age of 46, I happened upon a supplement line, and I decided to give it a try. I had gone to a very well-renowned center here in Dallas, spent thousands of dollars on all the tests, all the things. Right. What's your metabolism? What's your calories? I had gained a ton of weight. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now, and I couldn't get it off. And I went through this program for a year and was miserable and uncomfortable and barely lost any weight and didn't have any answers and didn't have the emotional support and the guidance from the nutritionist that I felt like I needed. It just didn't work. And so you get to that sort of desperate, hopeless place where you're willing to kind of try anything. Yes. And I feel very blessed that this line of supplements fell into my life. And the first one that I started with was collagen. Yeah. And it's a liquid collagen, and it's a type 1, so which is the most abundant collagen in your body of all the 40 types that are in there, 40 plus types. But it obviously, I thought, hair, skin, and nails, obviously. But what I didn't know about collagen and supplementation of collagen with the liquid is that it also supports retention of lean muscle, ligaments, tendons, bones. Yes. It supports gut health, inflammation. Right. It really helps all of those things. So in my first week on this collagen, I lost 6 pounds of inflammation alone. Yes. I had energy again. I started to feel good again. 2 weeks in, my joint pain went away. Not just diminished, but it went away.
So is this after you had your near-death experience?
Which one?
Which near-death experience? The one that you told me about that led to you when your autoimmune was getting worse and worse, and you were basically, they told you were on death's door? Am I misremembering the story?
You might be. I don't remember. saying that. I mean, I do know, I may have said that I felt dead inside.
Yeah.
Because that is how I felt.
Right.
They're just that hopelessness
Right.
may have been what I was referring to.
So what she was doing with this supplement, she was improving her gut health enormously by
The collagen was.
and the protein in it was
Right.
helping her in all the areas that she mentioned, but also, it's the fermentation process of those amino acids and proteins, because they go through your gut and they get destroyed there, and the bile also, and then hopefully they adhere, to the intestinal cells. But most importantly, the good bacteria take those amino acids and proteins, and maybe she was doing some other good things too, like eating fiber, and then the fiber is being fermented, all of those, to make short chain fatty acids. And it's the short chain fatty acids that start the healing process
Right.
in the lining of the gut, preventing the leaky gut. So the short chain fatty acids, there are 5 main ones, but 3 other ones that play the major role in the gut. And among them, butyrate. What it does is it upregulates the DNA and the epigenetics, the proteins, the histones around the DNA in your gut, to make the proteins that close the gap junctions. The gap junctions are the proteins that keep the cells side by side without leaking.
Right.
So now you're not going to absorb all that toxic stuff
Right.
and stuff that should go out of our system.
Right.
It was instead going into your bloodstream.
Right.
So you start healing the gut, you start or stop the leaky gut.
Right.
And then at the same time, the more you stay on those supplements, plus good, I love the Mediterranean diet because it's plant-based, lots of
Right.
fiber, whole grains,
Right.
fruits, vegetables, legumes, right? They all have a cell wall, those plants, and it's cellulose, non-cellulose, and that gets fermented by the good bacteria
Right.
into short-chain fatty acids, which then stimulate the cells to make the right neurohormones, augment the good T cells, get rid of the killer ones,
Right.
the cytotoxic ones,
Right.
increase something called GLP-1, which is the latest craze for weight loss, the semaglutide, the Ozempic. So this one is a natural stimulus of the L cells, L, like the letter league, okay, L. And those short-chain fatty acids stimulate them, which improve your glucose metabolism, brain function,
Correct.
get you to feel early satiety naturally
Right.
with that. That's what she was doing inadvertently. Were you told all that?
No. Not at all.
That's what
and
we're
I've
doing
since
in
learned
the
that.
podcast.
But in a couple months in, I started adding in adaptogens.
Yes.
And helping with stress relief for, using adaptogens, using natural approaches. I started sleeping better.
Were you weaning off the
I was
antidepressant?
weaning off of all my medications.
Which one were you on?
I was taking 5 medications at the time, and I'm now down to 1.
Okay.
And I'm borderline ready to wean off of it as well.
Excellent.
I want to, be responsible about it and take my time.
Yes.
But I was taking Xanax to help me sleep.
Right.
I haven't had a Xanax in over a year and a half.
Yes.
I was on Synthroid for my thyroid. They took me off of that, and my thyroid has been level. Disclaimer, I can't make medical claims that this would
Right.
happen to other people, but this is my
He
story
can.
Your
and
story.
what happened to
Yes,
me.
I've seen it. Yeah.
And, just painkillers, just from
Right.
joint pain, just taking even over the counter,
Ibuprofen or something.
whatever.
like that.
Right.
Yes.
Those are pretty much out of my life for the most
Right.
part.
Did you stop getting infections, UTIs,
Yes, and I
all
have.
that?
Yeah, I have not had anything
Any such?
until a week ago when I got strep throat, and that was the first time I've been sick in 2 years.
A couple of years. Yeah.
And it was partly just due to being run down and trying to
immune
do
system.
too much. Yeah, I just was doing too much. But over the course of the next year, I started adding in more products and more supplements with a really it's called Triotic. It's a triple probiotic.
Right.
And it's kind of like a grown up pixie stick. I hate taking pills.
Right.
I won't do it every day
So this
because
is a
I don't
really
like
easy-
it.
easy
just
way
real
for you.
easy, real simple
Right.
for me. It's encapsulated, so
Right.
it gets past the stomach acid
Right.
and releases in your digestive
Exactly.
tract where it needs to be. I drink this, which is recently came out just 2 weeks ago,
Right.
and I'm obsessed with it. It's prebiotics and probiotics.
Right.
What are prebiotics? Prebiotics are going to help you produce more probiotics and also help you retain the nutrition that you're
Exactly.
putting into your gut. So you can eat a perfect diet, and if your bacteria and your gut flora and your microbiome is off, you're not absorbing those
Exactly.
nutrients that you're
Exactly.
eating. So it's
Yeah.
a waste of time.
So this whole journey, you've been gradually improving your gut bacteria, your biodome.
Right.
So get rid of the dysbiosis. You have done your own bioengineering
Well,
without knowing
and-
you were doing it.
And I didn't know I was doing it.
Yes.
And it just sort of happened. And I got curious. Well, why is this working? Why have I lost
Yes.
40 pounds and easily still enjoying the foods I love,
Right.
still having
Powder donuts.
on occasion. I'm not perfect. I'm getting there, but it's,
Yes.
it is a process, and it's something that I think adding in good leads to eliminating the bad.
Absolutely.
And so instead of like killing yourself, like you can't do anything,
Yes.
I wanted it to be a sustainable lifestyle that I could stick with that would make me feel happy and make me be able to do what I enjoy doing and not stress over it.
Absolutely.
But over that course of the next, year, and I lost that 40 pounds, and I'm like, okay, why did this work? And I got really curious about it, which is when I started looking into functional medicine. And so now I'm working towards certification in functional medicine
Excellent.
and nutritional counseling.
Yes. And that's what we need more of. I mean, this country, Western societies, we need better nutrition advice.
Well,
and education.
Well, so I think now is the perfect time to segue to this topic. And your dad, by all measures, genius cardiologist, knew next to nothing about nutrition.
He was a brilliant man, and he, from starting in the late 70s, he suffered type 2 diabetes, heart disease, vascular disease, chronic renal failure,
Right.
high blood pressure. He was on a mirage of medications.
Yeah, I saw the list.
2 pages long, and kind of wobbling around, and he did not know anything about
Yeah, nutrition.
That side.
He-
real nutrition.
Yeah, so he had metabolic syndrome, which we've talked about,
Yeah.
and she just mentioned all of those characteristics, including being overweight. And so, one of the questions he asked me, how do you do it? Because I share with him that my dad got to 325 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a lawyer and a judge and law professor, but they don't know anything about nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, alcohol. And so you have
right.
two addictions going on, the
Right.
bad food and the alcohol.
Right.
And so I tried to talk to my dad. He wasn't interested. I know better.
Right.
So, you come from that genetics as I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm being in tune with it for a long time because me, I want to stay alive for my kids and my grandkids and
Right.
so on, but also to spread the message. And that's what you're doing. You're becoming an influencer with people. And that's a really good thing, to share with others.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, because I think I know how it feels to struggle and suffer and feel isolated and very alone and very hopeless.
Yes.
And wanting to show up as a better mom and a better daughter and a better friend and not being able to do it. And finding a solution and getting on the other side of it. It's just ignited a passion in me to want to help
Yes.
other people feel better because they can.
Absolutely.
It's not hopeless.
No.
The food industry has done an enormous amount of damage over the last 60 years, and they didn't know it, but we know it now. And, we can't
Well.
do.
If you listen to
things
all of our
differently.
podcasts, some of them knew,
Yes.
and they knew
We
all.
know.
Some of them knew all along.
Sure.
Yes.
But,
I mean,
but people like your dad or most doctors
Yeah.
don't learn proper nutrition.
right.
And that's part of what inspired me to get into functional medicine was what happened to my dad. Going through, 15 years of watching him slowly decline in and
Yes.
out of the hospital. And, all the problems he had, and also my daughter who has special needs, that her diet, her gut health is instrumental in what kind of day she has. When she loads up on processed foods and sugar, there's a very distinct difference from when she has her probiotics and her vitamins and her nutrition shake. She drinks my protein shakes because she needs that nutrition. And,
So you're educating her to go along a certain line to be healthier in time. And in all likelihood, hopefully, she will get better also from her, muscle issues and strength and the, autism spectrum disorder, wherever she's on it. If I had your labs here in front of me, would they look great?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Your ANA is
I'm down
not
to
detected.
180
1 to 80
to the lowest.
Okay. So you still have a little bit of autoimmune disorder.
I do.
Do you remember the tennis player, Venus Williams, Serena's
Yes.
sister, who is obviously one of the greatest players ever?
Yes.
Serena, of course, but Venus as well, She suffered from Sjogren's and had to take a year off. I just wonder, being such an elite athlete, what her nutrition was like in those prior to that.
Right.
Right. Because some autoimmune disorders may be from other causes. We're not sure exactly.
So one thing that we have a clinical study going on right now, and it's around moringa. I don't know if you've heard of moringa.
It's a berry.
That's a lemon pie.
It's a
Lemon moringa.
Well, there's some in that little satchel I brought.
All right, let's see.
Moringa is actually a tree.
It's a tree.
And it has been used for thousands and thousands of years.
But it grows a berry of some sort, right?
Yes. So it's important to find a moringa that harvests naturally. This is it. There's actually 3 versions of it, but I only have 2. That one has natural caffeine in it. This one does the same thing basically, but no caffeine.
Is the extreme moringa.
Yes.
Wow.
So
these are little popsicles that you...
No, you...
Let's see. Show us how you do it.
You put it in water and
dissolve it.
And dissolve it and
just go
drink
about it like a popsicle.
And it definitely looks like muddy water, but it tastes pretty good. It tastes like kind of like flavored iced tea. And sometimes I'll add like half a stick of hydrate to it just to give it a little bit more flavor, or squeeze some lemon juice in it or something like that.
So this is a prebiotic, basically.
It is a prebiotic, but it is really fascinating because moringa has this particular, because we utilize all the parts of the tree, the seeds, the fruit, and the leaves, sun-dried, slow-dried. 92 different nutrients, 36 anti-inflammatories, 18 amino acids, including all 9 essential amino acids. For those of you that don't know, essential amino acids you can really only get from your food.
Correct.
And that's hard to do.
He gets 10, by the way.
Oh, well, that's, these go to 11.
You're Greek, right?
Because of the feta cheese, is that why?
Yeah, you're Greeks, you guys. And didn't you invent culture as a whole? Kind of, right?
I mean, high culture. There's other cultures.
So moringa's been used for thousands of years to treat and prevent over 300 diseases.
Where was this being used? Was it in India?
India.
In India.
India originally, yes. The clinical study they're working on right now is showing potential for reversal of autoimmune disease.
So they're enrolling people like yourself who had a positive ANA,
right?
And then one of the different type of autoimmune disorders,
right? And using the anti-inflammatories, the prebiotic, the probiotic, the features, the natural features of it.
Any pharmaceuticals.
Correct.
So
no pharmaceuticals.
No pharmaceuticals. Okay.
Correct. So it's really
where's the study taking place?
Phenomenal. I'd have to look it up and tell you exactly where.
Is it multi-center study?
Yeah,
throughout the U.S.
Our company is worldwide, so we're in 24 countries. But the study is in the U.S. as far as I know. Yeah, I'd have to look it up.
So I'm just to let people who may have an interest in looking it up to
when it's completed and comes out. Yeah, right. I will.
We'll have to have you back on.
Yeah. And it's really fascinating. But it's been shown to help prevent cancer. It has been shown to help regulate hormones. Right. It's pretty phenomenal.
Well, it's activating, again, your own biodome that hopefully combining with a plant-based diet mostly healthy with lots of fiber. And then you get the right fermentation, as I mentioned earlier,
You've-
and all the good things.
You've mentioned a healthy diet several times, Fred, but just for the people who are maybe listening to the first time, what's the healthy diet? Give your little spiel.
The one that we have in the cardiovascular world the most data on is the Mediterranean diet. That's most plant-based.
That should be called the Greek diet, but I'll allow it.
Okay, we can, give a little kudos to the Greek. Yes, but it is from your people. Yes, and we have the best data in the cardiovascular world at preventing diabetes or those who are pre-diabetic from advancing to full diabetes.
Do you want to do your little?
Well, limit your animal proteins, do lots of veggies, a little fruit, mixed nuts, whole grains every day, lots of water, and limit or eliminate altogether processed foods, especially processed meats.
It sounds like
And limit sugars. Refined sugars are awful for our biodome. They are.
They are.
As she was mentioning a few minutes ago with respect to her daughter's behavior.
it sounds like from hearing from both of you guys, and I'm just the average layperson, that the biodome is way more important than any I ever realized.
Absolutely.
Because it's like a spiral almost. Once you get it going in the right direction, it feeds on itself because you had more energy. Whereas when it was
some people refer to it as your body's second brain. To me, it's almost your body's first brain because
Right.
it does tell your brain up here
To crave
what
the wrong
to do,
foods.
what to crave, how to
if,
feel.
if you have the wrong bacteria, then through a series of events, you do get the wrong cravings.
Yeah.
you just didn't want to say nucleus accumbens again. I could tell.
But now on this leverage podcast, the key is gain leverage over your gut health
Right.
by doing the right supplements and the diet that we talked about. And there are nutritionists that may have other positive things to add to this conversation.
For sure.
But the last thing, it's cardiovascular disease is largely preventable. Mm-hmm. Cancer is preventable in most people.
Mm-hmm.
Diabetes in most people.
Yes.
Yes.
So we talked about now nitric oxide of improving endothelial function and gut health to improve overall health.
And then you get into cellular health,
Yes.
where you can use intermittent cleansing in a healthy way, where you get all the nutrients that you need, but you
Absolutely.
encourage cellular turnover.
Yes.
Whether it's with NAD or a cleansing
Yes.
of 24 to 36 hours.
Healthy autophagy.
Correct. Autophagy starts at 24 hours.
There you go.
And your body starts to really break down those cells that are stuck.
She thinks I'm just a cardiologist.
Hardly.
Now she's going, oh,
Hardly.
I like it. Even if my t-shirt says Bat Toro.
Yes. Well, no, as soon as you said preventative
Yeah.
early on,
that's
I
my-
thought
so that's my goal.
That's different.
Well, that's what sets him apart
Correct.
from, as you know very well, because your dad was literally top of the top, but
Yeah.
that wasn't even on his radar.
Well, they were in the advent when he was at his peak, of course, cardiovascular disease, we were getting more toys. Okay, so we had more cardiac caths and stents and echocardiograms and cardiac CT and MRI and the PET scan that I mentioned earlier, and then mitral valve clips and then endovascular stents and monitors and all this and that. So it was a very sexy profession, but not one of those dealt with the preventive aspect of all of that.
Right. Nothing has looked at the root cause.
Perfectly said. The root cause is where it's at. And that's what we have to do as in our own lives as an individual, spread the message to our own family and friends,
Right.
and then the community at large, and then the country at large. And that's why we've been saying we need to have nutrition education all in kindergarten. And then more so.
And get ready to drink because he's about to mention his children's book for healthy. Here we go.
my Eisenhower series? With HeyPro. What is that? Oh, that was the signal to not to talk about the
No,
book
go
series?
ahead.
I'm
sorry, I left
On
my
Amazon, the Eisenhower series. It's my anti-sugar squirrel named Eisenhower that goes on adventures
Oh.
and
Hey, Daniel, can you let John in, please?
teaches the other animals how to eat right. So look them up. Dr. Fred series on Amazon. Because I think that's what's needed, and parents to become more involved. And that's why if I had a magic wand and I was part of the HHS or Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
I would definitely have this huge department of getting young parents and children involved with nutrition and fostering partnerships with the food industry. I think that's needed.
Yeah, I would agree.
Someone asked me, would you tax sugar? And I said, I would do the reverse. I would do the reverse taxation on sugar. I would reward the food industry by lowering the chemicals and the processed chemical, all of that, and the sugar each year, and give them a break on the tax
Yeah.
for putting out better products.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when parents buy those, they get a little tax break on them too for buying the correct products.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a place that sells, say, fast food, hamburgers, and so on, and French fries, they would have a few products on there that have less sugar, less saturated fats, no preservatives, no insecticides, no pesticides, no hormones,
Right.
none of that, that cost a little less
Right.
because they're being not necessarily subsidized, but they're being taxed less. And you get a credit as a consumer.
Well, and what's interesting too is that people kind of balk at the price of healthy food. And
Right.
the difference is when you get everything balanced correctly, you're not eating as much and you're eating the right things, and it all kind of balances out. Your grocery budget changes tremendously when
Yes.
you're supplementing properly and your body is telling you, you can stop now. You don't have to keep going.
Correct,
You
yes.
don't have to overeat. You don't have to overspend. There doesn't have to be as much waste. And so
Right.
it's sort of making it a priority to people to, choose healthier
Yes.
diets.
So I'm going to go to my neurochemistry. So you're getting the right signal at the satiety center because
Right.
you're stimulating just the right amount of the opioid receptor that through a series of events increases dopamine just to the right amount without compromising acetylcholine. And you get your satiety center and you say, I'm full. And at the stomach level, your mechanoreceptors are working just right to say you're full.
Right.
So you get your serotonin release, which gives you pleasure, and not as much ghrelin, which gives you more hunger.
Right.
So it all works like a beautiful symphony.
So what I'm hearing is people that are struggling with their weight, their gut health's probably bad. And
Yes,
they might
for
be
sure.
working harder to lose weight or to be healthy, but it's like they're running in place. It's like the treadmill
Absolutely.
doesn't
That's
go
what
anywhere.
I did
Great
for a
metaphor.
year. I worked really hard to lose 10 pounds, and I was miserable. And it doesn't have to be that way.
And then
I
you-
just wasn't addressing the root cause of my problem. You're either going to heal your body or you're not. You can't fix part of it.
Yes.
You can't just do the symptoms. You
No.
can't just address the symptoms. And as soon as you address your gut health, the weight just melted off.
And it's a
It really
gradual
did
process.
for me.
Yeah.
And it does happen quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've done some of that on your own, right?
Not the moringa, no. Just the meringue pie.
Just the meringue, the lemon meringue.
That's my
But
diet.
he is getting better. So, 30 pounds later in a few months, not bad.
Well, Evan, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
I
hope,
did. Thank
hope
you
we can
for
bring you
having
back when that study's been completed,
An
so we can
update.
find out more about it.
Yeah, I'll bring my studies with me.
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to see them. Educate us.
Yeah.
We'd like
for
to
sure.
learn. Absolutely.
So this has been the Leverage Podcast with our guest, Evan Hernandez. Once again, I'm Davio Venturas. This is Dr.
Hernandez.
Okay. Hernandez. And this is, as always,
Hay
Dr.
que hablar
Federico
español,
Macy.
Hay que saber hablar español. Gracias.
Please like and subscribe us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify and rate us. We're also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Am I forgetting any of them? I always forget
We're
them.
supposed to be on Twitter sometimes.
Yeah, we're going to be on Twitter one day.
One day. We're spreading good news here in health. Is that allowed on Twitter to spread good news in health?
Yeah, it is now, I think.
It's not. We're not going to get canceled for saying good things about our biodome.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Yeah,
talk to you
thank
soon.
you.
All right, bye-bye.